Hi, welcome to Get Known, Be Seen WebTV. I'm your host, Trish Springsteen, and it's my delight in this particular session to have a lovely conversation with Dean Salakas. Welcome, Dean.
Thanks, Trish. Good to see you.
Really looking forward to having a great conversation with you. Before we get into that conversation, let's just learn a little bit more about Dean. Now, Dean's business is called The Party People. Let's stop and think about that, people, because who doesn't like partying? We're going to find out a little bit more about this. So just to give you a bit of a background on it, about 30 years ago, Dean's mum was Patches the Clown, and she was catering for kids' parties, which led to her to open a small party store with Dean's grandfather. Then in 2007, Dean and his brother took over the family business and its employees. Today, they've got 40 employees. They operate the market leader for party supplies online, and they also have 2 bricks and mortar stores, of which one is Australia's largest. In 1999, when he was in high school, Dean launched Australia's first online party store with what is now known as Click and Collect. So, wow, we've got a celebrity in our midst here, someone who breaks the borders and sets the standard for people. In 2003, Dean did his university thesis on the party people online, and as a result became Google Australia's first advertiser. Under Dean's leadership, the business has continued to pioneer online, being Microsoft Bing's first Australian advertiser, and they were also the pilot company for Facebook's Accelerator program. They were also the first party store to launch express and same-day shipping, as well as buy now, pay later payment options. Definitely a trendsetter here. For the last 2 years, Dean has been named in the Internet Retailing Top 50 People in E-commerce and the Australian Retail Association Retail Leader of the Year. The business appeared on Shark Tank Australia Season 1, where they received a $400,000 offer from Janine Allis, which Dean turned down. And we're going to ask him why and where he's gone from there. And today, they're preparing to create a chain of party stores in Australia so that every Australian can create their dream party. Wow, Dean, you certainly are what I would call a trendsetter, breaking down barriers. I'd like to know a little bit more about the background. What's it been like being sort of some of the first people to do these things and set these trends?
Yeah, it's been a fun ride, I would say. Things feel a bit different now to how they felt in the beginning. I mean, it wasn't something we really thought about when we first started doing some of those things. But then as we started to gain momentum and get some success from being an early adopter, we started to realize that was part of our culture and part of our, competitive advantage, being an early mover in what is a competitive industry. So, we've kind of learned along the way what's worked for us and what hasn't, and how to be agile and move very quickly. And as a result, we've been able to, punch above our weight in terms of pioneering and innovating in retail and e-commerce, and obviously particularly in our vertical being party.
Awesome. And I'd like to sort of delve in, what did you feel like when you were taking some of these risks, some of these big steps? Did you think, this is going to be fine? Did it all work out straight away? Or did you run into challenges? And if you ran into challenges, how did you overcome those?
Look, I think early on, like we said, we launched in 98. And that was my mum. Well, we launched in 99. We started working on it in 98. My mum, it was her idea to launch a party store online. And she was in partnership with my grandfather. So that was certainly some interesting dinner-time conversation around, at the time, launching an e-commerce business, seemed just stupid. Yeah. My mum, got to give her full credit to having the foresight to do that. She had this vision that people could shop with us anytime, anywhere, and she was right, and so we launched online. She gave me, her techie son, the reins and said, go and work with a couple of uni students and figure out how we're going to do a website. Back then, there was no e-commerce or anything like that. We worked with a couple of IT guys to launch a website. and we built something from scratch essentially, which got us off the ground. And that was really interesting in how that went. So look, it was a little bit scary. I mean, spending 10 grand to build a website in the in the late 90s seemed like a lot of money. And my grandfather was like, why don't we just spend more on Yellow Pages while we're spending that 10 grand on a website? And to most people today, that just sounds crazy. But at the time, it was a very legitimate thing to say. And yeah, I mean, it was scary. And even just growing, I mean, obviously, constantly we would ask, is this the right thing to do? Are we just going to blow a whole lot of money on whatever that, piece of the puzzle was? But, I think over time we came up with a bit of a formula for it. And, I probably learned that from having to push my parents to get them to go further with the online. But so once, it was my mum's idea to launch it, but I really wanted to push it harder. And as a young kid, you really, you're learning about your own identity and all that sort of stuff. And I was saying, look, I think we should do more with this. We should spend more on advertising. We should go a bit harder. And they were like, no, you've got a budget. You stick to your budget. And I was saying, well, no, we can grow this even more and we can make this huge, And they were like, no. And so I tried to build a case to prove it. And, that I'm just like, the maths add up here. And so, there were certainly challenges like that. But, and that was one of the reasons my brother and I took over, is that we felt there was huge potential and it was being held back. And once we took over, we really focused on that leadership in terms of being digital and pioneering certain areas of e-commerce. And, as we were doing things, I guess the biggest problem was those things didn't really exist. So we had to build them from scratch. We had to come up with our own things. I had, spreadsheets doing problem solving for us and access databases and all that sort of stuff where, so we really had to build it ourselves, most stuff. But then, over time, things started to become out of the box, which again made it hard for us to compete because we'd have legacy systems in place that we'd created. But, now there was this U-Butte whiz-bang tool that came out of the box that did exactly what we pioneered. So, there was a lot of things like that, and it was scary. And I think just over time we've learned to be better at it and know where's easy to pioneer, where's profitable to be an early mover, and when is it better to be late, because not always it's the right thing to be early. But there are certain areas where we found that we've been able to make the decisions to be early and it's paid off, and others we've made mistakes and we've learned from those along the way where being early hurt us. So yeah, I think just over time we've learned how to do it better.
Maybe what we call the ultimate build it and they will come.
Yeah, it was a bit like that, I think, in the beginning.
Yes, I can't imagine. I know about that period of time, and it just wasn't online stuff. You didn't have the whole thing that we have now. So
yeah,
to step outside and do that was pretty pioneer. And
yeah.
do you think that has helped you here? And I remember you saying just then about how you had to convince your parents about. Do you think that helped you when you came to that? We talked about you were on Shark Tank Australia, and that's all about pitching.
Yep.
So do you think that early part of having to stand up there and pitch it to your parents and then being that pioneer, did that help you when you were facing, because it's a pretty daunting Shark Tank is? It's reduced.
Yeah, I would say it helped a little bit. I guess there was a little bit in the lead up to Shark Tank that probably helped a little bit more, doing a few little TV appearances and working with the media a little bit prior to Shark Tank was probably the best training for that. And then, having some coaching as well. So I did have some coaching through that process, and not the pitching process. I wish I got coaching on pitching itself, because really I went in cold in terms of pitching. But I got a bit of coaching on PR and personal branding, and starting to think about what are the things we want to achieve from being on the show. One, being investment, but two, you don't want to look stupid either. So there was a couple of goals from going on Shark Tank, not just getting investment. That was the key one, but there were other benefits to being on the show, and recognizing that and figuring out how to leverage that, which is where I got some coaching on, and that certainly helped big time. So, like you said, you kind of you started the show with what's usually my pitch, my elevator pitch, and people say, tell me about the party people, and the party people started 30 years ago with my mum, who was a clown, and that's the fun story to it. And so I've got, being able to have that down pat by the time I got to that stage of actually pitching definitely helped a lot. So, I guess everyone says an elevator pitch is important for business. Well, I had to use it in a very extreme level, pitching for money. But, then again, you could argue that you're doing that every day. But, to that point, I was literally given 2 minutes to pitch in front of 1 million people in theory. Well, in practice, at the end, there was 1 million people that watched it. So, that was pitching on steroids, and I certainly learned a lot in the lead up. And, those little media appearances, or even just pitching to trying to get media attention, all of that helped me refine my pitch up to that point.
It's true that when you're doing something like that and you decide to step out and, take that courage and do something like that, it's true that all your experiences that you've had in the past really come to help you when you're doing something at that particular moment.
Yeah, they do.
That respect. Investment was one goal. What were the other goals that made you decide to put yourself really out there? That's the ultimate getting over your scene, going on Shark Tank, really.
Yeah, look, I'd say the first thing that came up was, let's go on because we want investment. But then we started asking, then that's where the scary bit comes in, which is, we could go on there and we could look silly, and what does that mean? And then what happens if we look really good? How does that mean? And what if we don't get the deal we like? Should we accept it and then just turn it down later, and just so we look good on air? And so we started asking all those questions about whether we really want to go on national TV where we could look really stupid. And that show has a history of really getting stuck into people. So, the odds were against us in a way. So, that's where we did start thinking about, what are other goals? And definitely PR was another goal. And hence, we made the pitch look really fun. And, you might start asking yourself, would you spend a whole lot of money on a pitch? Well, the answer was yes, this is an advert. So, it's not just for the Sharks, it's for the 1 million people who are going to watch it. So, we decided to put the effort into the background and the pitch and the balloon drop that you saw go over the Sharks, and really make it media worthy and fun and on brand for us. And because, we knew that was another goal, which was the PR side of things. So that was probably the second most important part of it. We were saying, look, on one hand, we want to go in there and try to get legitimate investment. But on the other hand, we can't really afford to look stupid because that's going to hurt our business. So we have to, A, go on there and ask for money, and B, look great doing it with whatever outcome happens. And that's where we started doing things like, making sure I was prepared. I had all the answers to the questions, and spent a lot of time pitching. There's a lot of prep that went into that pitch. Even though I didn't get sort of professional pitch coaching, I got a lot of family and friends that saw that pitch before it went out. I'd done it 100 times before I went out there. So by the time I got to the point where I was walking out on that stage, I really wasn't that nervous as much as they try to make it look like that. I was sort of pretty confident. I think they picked a few screenshots from probably the last 15 minutes of that pitch. I was in there for 2 hours, but they showed the last 15 minutes, I think, when I was probably crapping myself in terms of negotiating with Janine Allis. That's when I was really nervous. But up to that point, sort of felt like, it was like going into a university exam where you just feel like, look, I've done all the study I can do. I've done all the prep. I'm ready for this, and I'm just going to do the best I can, and I'm sure that's going to be good enough. And that's how I felt going into it. So certainly, I spent a lot of time focusing on making sure that, when I went out there, it kind of was good for TV and media worthy. And the difficult thing is, that there's a bit of it is out of your control, because certainly, and I saw that there's a lot of people that go into that show, and I pitched for 2 hours and they show you 15 minutes. So they pick what they want to pick and they tell the story they want to tell, and it's not necessarily the real story. But I guess I was conscious of that and trying to make sure, spend a part of that whole process was making sure that, trying to put us in a position where when they did put it to air, that it showed a good story. And look, I think they got it about right in terms of what they showed. They made some bits look better, some bits look worse, but generally speaking, they sort of put us down the middle. They cut out a few controversial bits where John and I had a bit of a stoush, which I thought was interesting because I thought, holy crap, that's going to get to air and I don't know how that could go. But instead, they put more of a positive spin on it. And I think the post on-air experience or being prepared for what happens post-air was critical for us as well. So, look, they put limitations on you now, what you can and can't do post-air. I was on season 1, so I had a lot less, had a lot more flexibility. So, you know, I had press releases going out the minute the episode finished airing. You know, I had a prepared pitch. I knew where I wanted to feature, who I wanted to talk to. You know, I had a pretty good plan for what was going to happen post-show. Even during the show, I mean, we were monitoring the webpage and, you know, putting stuff on social media and interacting with people via social while we were watching it. And I had my whole family helping me with that while we were watching it because we wanted to enjoy the experience of being on air. Because, I mean, we didn't see it. We see it just like everyone for the first time when it goes to air. But certainly being ready and thinking about the PR was critical to the final, you know, way that was perceived. You know, interestingly, I saw recently, I saw something, they've reposted the video more recently and put sort of a bit more of a negative spin on it. But I think, you know, more of the, you know, we controlled the narrative after that went to air because, you know, we were talking about how, you know, we turned down the money because we didn't want to give away half the family business. And that was the story we'd already put out. And, you know, that had already taken hold and many media outlets got, you know, syndicated that and did interviews and all that sort of stuff. So we kind of controlled the story after that as well, which I think was another critical part of it.
Awesome. Look, I think people watching, this is an important segment that Dean's just shared with us, and you need to stop, rewind, and go back and listen a couple of times because you've made some very valid, important points around getting known, being seen, around making it easy for people to find you, around media and PR, which is all about getting up there and saying, here I am. And I think some of the points that you've made about being on brand, that it followed all the way through, which meant you were coming across as true and authentic, about your research, about being prepared, about the control. Now, sometimes you can control a lot when you're getting known, be seen, sometimes you can't control. And I think some of the points you made, Dean, were really good about you control what you can.
Yeah, that's right.
And then put your own...
You can't control it all.
No.
That's for sure.
And it's being flexible and being prepared to go with what comes out there. So there's some really great points for people watching. I think you answered the question I was going to say. Why did you turn it down? But I think you've answered that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's another important point. When you're doing pitching, when you're doing negotiations, you need to know where your tipping point is. And you need to be able to be confident and have a self-belief in your business and your message to be able to walk away if you need to. And was that something that you were really prepared for, or was that something that sort of hit you at the last minute and you thought, no, I don't want to do that?
Look, I think we had the problem with the way that all went down for me, and that's where I did look really nervous and I was crapping myself, is that the rules of that the show were I wasn't allowed to have any pen and paper, I wasn't allowed to have a calculator. You know, I essentially where, you know, the shark's sitting there writing down things, doing calculations, and you know, you see it in the show actually of what she asked me, and my brain's spinning. I can't figure out what she's doing. So I was really nervous, and it was really difficult trying to figure out what the real answer should be, because you know it wasn't any scenario you know, you can only manage so many scenarios prior to going in there. And on my season, I was not allowed to call a business partner during the filming. So essentially they said, yeah, you either go in with your business partner or you don't. And that's where, you know, again, my business partner's a lot less confident than I am with this thing. We made a conscious choice to leave him out. It was you know, he didn't want to do it himself, but we both made a conscious choice to have me just going by myself. But then again, I was on my own, so I had to make that decision on the fly. And no, I'd say we weren't prepared, and I wasn't sure if I made the right decision afterwards either, because, you know, I was thinking, holy crap, I just turned down a pretty good opportunity to work with one of the best business minds in Australia. But, you know, I just felt we were too far apart, and we were never going to get to something that we were both going to agree to. So no, I wouldn't say we were as prepared as I would have liked for that part, but you know, I had a pretty good idea, and I think, look, I'm confident I made the right decision in the end. But you know, it was difficult, definitely.
It's good. And people, you may not be faced with the same really like, oh, break it or not decision that, you know, break or make it decision, the thing was, but some of the thought processes that Dean's just shared with you are some of the things that you need to be aware of when you're making any decision, when you're doing any negotiation, when you're going into looking even at joint venture partnerships, whatever. You need to know and then be confident to go with your gut. If you know, that's the last thing I would say. You know, would that be a right comment, Dean? That, you know, given all the preparedness, given all the quotations, you went with your gut at the end.
Yeah, I think I went with. I'm not sure if gut is the right word, but I think we had the discussion to know roughly what was going to be a good outcome for us, and that was nowhere near what we felt was, you know, close enough to being something. We knew what was a good outcome. We knew what was an average outcome. But, you know, that was sitting in the area of poor outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that's why. So I said it was, yeah, I mean, it's still hard to reconcile because you're sitting there questioning all that prep and saying, well, are we really making the right decision? Am I really prepared to turn down working with Janine Allis here? There are other benefits than just the money. There's the person, you know, the skills, the network, all that sort of stuff. You start questioning whether this is really the right decision or not. But, you know, that shows on steroids. In real life, you have time to consider these things. There I had to make that decision as it came. So I had literally seconds to make it, and I had to make it.
Awesome. And that's comes down to when you're a business owner or when you're an entrepreneur, you've got those decisions to make, and you just have to decide which way you're going. So going forward from there, how has the business gone? Well, how have you managed to leverage it? What were you able to? Does it work for you? Where are you now in your business?
Yeah, I think, like, you know, some of the things you mentioned earlier around pioneering online and our story with my mum and all that sort of stuff, you know, really started to create a story for us in the public. You know, I mean, like I said, Shark Tank, 1 million people saw that. So, look, people probably forgotten about it today. But I know, you know, even walking through the street after being on the show, people would recognize me and say hello, or, you know, at the vote the next day, and the person at the desk, when I went to vote early, first question was, why are you here to vote early? And then was like, oh, you were on Shark Tank last night. So, you know, certainly the recognition was great, and our story in the lead up and all that sort of stuff was started to create a whole narrative for my business. And that was something, again, that coaching around PR, we leveraged that and continued to play on that. And even today, we continue to build that story. So, you know, we continue to grow the business. We, from that point onwards, really started putting myself out there personally in terms of personal branding, which was not about an ego or anything like that, which some people probably think it is. But, you know, to give you an idea, like in the first 5 years, we didn't appear in the media at all. We wanted to fly under the radar. That was our original thinking. And I got some coaching which said, no, you have to do the opposite. You need to personally put yourself out there, be a brand. The more PR you generate for yourself, people are going to, by association, learn about the party people. So you need to continue to build your personal brand and put yourself right out there. So following on from Shark Tank, I did heaps of media. around Shark Tank, and then from there, the business started winning awards, which obviously, you apply for all these awards, so we started winning awards, and that sort of snowballed. So over, the years it snowballed, and to the point now, I would say over the last, 12 months have been funny with COVID, but, probably the last 2 to 3 years, we probably average a media appearance twice a week. So hitting on around 100 media appearances a year, which for a small business is, every time I talk to people, I think it's just phenomenal. And I have to pinch myself every time I look at it. But, we've got it down to a very well-oiled machine such that we don't spend a whole lot of time on that stuff, yet appear, a lot in the media. And I think that's been the key for me is that, as a CEO, I don't have time to do a lot of that stuff and spend a whole lot of time. So you've got to make sure you're doing it in a way that's efficient and effective in achieving the result you want with minimal effort. So yeah, I'm sitting here talking to you, so certainly not trying to find shortcuts in getting out of these things. It's more about just being smart about how you spend your time and having that pitch down pat, having a good pitch, so that when you do pitch, you're not doing 100 pitches and getting 10 pickups. You're doing, 20 pitches and getting 19 pickups. So it's about, being efficient, and that's something we've found. So yeah, certainly. And people can test me on this. People always say, oh, they try to call bullshit. Well, you can just Google Dean Salakas or the party people and click the news part, and then you just see all these things come up. And, so it certainly is working very well for us. And, Shark Tank was a pivotal one that really launched us. But, there was a lot that happened prior to that in terms of lead up. We appeared on Channel 7 and Koshi's show and things like that. And then, afterwards continued to leverage it and use it rather than just let it fade away. A lot of companies sort of let that Shark Tank thing fade away where, I think it's even still listed on our website in the front banner that rolls on, so we're certainly still leveraging all of that.
I think that's a good point you've made about leveraging and repurposing. So what you've done is you haven't reinvented new stuff. You've probably done some, but what you've done is looked at what you've got and repurposed it and pushed it and reused it and not let it go back. Because a lot of people just say, oh, yes, that's good, done that, tick that, what's the next one? But that means that they're reinventing everything all the time. And it takes time, a lot of overwhelm. But, well, you'd mentioned a good pitch for the media and for that. What would be 2 or 3 things you could say that would be a good pitch, that the elements of a good pitch that you could recommend to people watching?
Yeah, good question. I should have thought about that before you asked it. I guess, look, that probably, because I think of it more as like there's a lot to pitching. You could write a book about it.
Yeah.
There probably are books about it. I assume there are. But there's a lot to it. But the philosophy I got from someone once was really good around that. Every step of the pitch is like a pitch to demand more of time of someone. So just thinking about that, what you start thinking about is that the first part of your pitch is trying to draw them in to hear the second part of the pitch. And the second part of the pitch is trying to draw them in to get the third part of the pitch. And the third part of the pitch is trying to get them to want to learn more. And the whole process is to want to get them to know more all the way through. So you don't start with waffle and have the punchline at the end. You start with the punchline, and then you go in a little bit deeper, and then you go in a little bit deeper. So it's the reverse of how most people pitch, to be honest. Yeah. And to be honest, for me, that's been the key, which is, and when I say each step of the pitch, it doesn't necessarily mean talking. It could be a one-line thing. The second step would be an email. There's certainly different stages of a pitch. But there's also a lot around it too, I would say, in terms of tips for people around pitching, which is that it's not just the pitch itself. It's everything that hangs off you as a brand, you as a profile. You got to know that people are going to Google you and look you up once they see your pitch, and if your model is successful in getting them to get to that point. So, it's about having a great LinkedIn profile, having all the information there, not just a lot of people don't spend a lot of time on their LinkedIn profile, where it should be filled out if you want people to learn more about you. having a website that represents that. So there's certainly a lot of little things there, but like I said, probably the two most important parts are just making sure that you start with the punchline and keep drawing someone in, but then also having a lot of things around your pitch. If you ask for three, so I might as well give you three, but it's about all that congruence of brand. My title being Chief Party Dude, which is a fun title, but it's on brand for me. It's created an identity for me. So, again, when I'm pitching for media, it adds that element of an expert. So there's certainly a lot of things to pitching. It's not just as simple. So, like I said, I get, twice a week. I mean, it didn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of, it snowballs to that point. But you build that over time. So, I'd say probably they're the three key things I think about when, in why it's efficient for me to be pitching at the moment.
Awesome. And some really great gold nuggets there. Very good. I like the on-brand and identity. I think that's important because it's the person behind the business. And that's what you let them see, because that's the person they want to work with. It's not just the shining person out, but they want to know who's behind that.
Yeah.
And when you bring your own identity into it, you're showing people what's behind.
Yeah,
I think that's a very good point to bring out there. There was something I was going to ask, but I got sidetracked on that aspect because I got so involved in listening to what you were saying. Then I forgot where I was going to go with that particular point. And I think that's, I like the fact that that you've brought all that expertise forward and you've been learning, and you've faced some challenges, but you've not let those stop you. You've just picked yourself up and gone forward again.
Yeah, to be honest, I've seen the whole process as a bit of a fun learning experience. It's about how can I hack pitching? I haven't read any books on pitching. I might have read one or two articles, but really it's just been about self-learning and trying to better myself as a person and be better at pitching and looking at other people's pitches that are good or bad and saying, oh, I like how they did that, or geez, that was crap, and learning from that and going, oh, actually, what, I do that too, so I've got to stop doing that. So, I think it's just been about thinking about it and refining the process and just slowly getting better and better as I've gone on. So, yeah, I've certainly, you pitch and you don't get one, you start thinking, why didn't I get that one? I should have got it. I thought I had that one. So start asking some of those questions and, it's interesting. And then I've also, eventually built rapport with journos and things like that and started asking them about the pitch, what pitches are good, what good pitches are bad, trying to learn from them and slowly built it up over time.
I like the fact that you said it was a holistic approach, because I think with everything you do in your business, and if you want to get out there and be seen, you have to look at that holistic approach, because if it doesn't all mesh together, you may be missing people.
Yeah.
Look at other things, and you've only been getting to one particular area of people that you've got, and you've missed that. So let's go forward and think about, where do you want to take your business? What's the future looking like for you?
Yeah, so for us, look, COVID at the moment is not particularly good for the party business.
No.
So business is not great at the present moment, but hopefully things change in the near future. And, we want to grow and open more stores. You mentioned in the pitch you mentioned in the intro that was our dream and our goal. Look, it was prior to COVID. I'd say it's still the dream. It's just, it's not the right environment for us to be growing at the moment. So things are a bit on hold, but, once things settle down a bit and people start to party again, which I think will happen, I don't think it will be like this forever, then, that'll be the right time for us to look at growing again. And so, the plan is to open up more party stores because, that's what works for us and continue to grow the online.
Did you, when that really interesting year last year happened, what was the major things that you did? Did you change anything? Did you switch to anything?
It's probably pretty topical for this show that like everyone, we had to pivot and adapt. I guess what we did a few things a little differently, and that worked for us. and then we did a whole bunch of PR around that. So, you know, like I said, we've appeared in the media 100 times over the last 2 years. Probably about 50% to 70% of that has been related to COVID type things. What is the, you know, when we were down 92% in March last year, what we did to dig ourselves out, you know, and, you know, people probably have to look for the articles. It's not hard to find it. Just Google the party people in COVID, I assume, and you'll find some stuff. But, you know, we talked to our customers, we learned some things, and all of that we then leveraged for PR, you know. Like, I mean, every time we do something, we think, well, that was pretty cool. That worked really well for us. We go and scream about it, tell everyone about it, go and put it in the media, do media releases. You know, I mean, I did a story on, for example, you know, one thing we realized through COVID was having a contingency. You know, we saw what happened in Adelaide because we're in New South Wales. We saw them getting snap lockdown with 24 hours notice. And we thought, holy crap, what happens if that happens to us? So we came up with a COVID lockdown contingency plan. What happens if we get locked down with 24 hours notice? What will we do in that 24 hours to make sure we're ready? And we maximize our situation, because otherwise, you know, there's going to be a lot of inefficiency if we don't prepare for that. So we came up with that plan, and then we went to the media with it and said, people should really have a COVID, you know, contingency plan, and put a story out there on having a COVID contingency plan. So, you know, it's just things like that we've done that, you know, every time we've done something cool or we thought we've got a good idea, we've gone and put it out there. We've thought less about, you know, most people think about, oh, well, then my competitors are going to know about it. Well, yeah, so they will, but, you know, I don't think you can think about that. You've got to try to, I mean, our philosophy has always been just, we'll just keep pioneering and stay ahead. And if people want to learn from us, that's fine. You know, we'll just keep doing what we're doing and keep helping people and helping other businesses by telling people about things we do really well. And the benefits of that far outweigh the fact that the competition is going to hear about what we're doing. So that's what we've been doing a lot of.
I love that. I think that's another gold nugget. So people stop here again and rewind and listen to what Dean just said, because that is the ultimate leveraging that Dean just showed you. They had to figure out something, and then they just didn't keep it to themselves. They leveraged that solution by sharing it out there as a story in the media, which meant they now were getting media attention, and we're getting people to say, wow, that's awesome. These are innovative people. We need to go and make sure that we've got them in our back of our mind when we can use them again.
Yeah, it was also a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way, because like we did. So, for example, we came up with a bouquet that was Happy ISO Mother's Day, for example. And again, you know, I mean, just we went to the media. That was part of. It wasn't actually the whole story, but it was part of that story around COVID adapting. And as a result, that media story gets out there. People read about that, and then people were calling me saying, "Hey, I want this. Can you do this ISO bouquet? But can you do it for my wife's birthday, because, you know, that's coming up?" Or they were calling the store and saying, "I just saw that story in the paper. Can you do that for me?" And so it's kind of a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy as well, that the things we were talking about being cool, then obviously the media then perpetuates that, and they continue to grow. So that PR was great.
I think that's the ultimate, and the next ultimate in getting known, be seen, is what you're saying, because that's when you do that, amazing opportunities come from that. So you've got a lovely process where, oh gosh, what are we going to do? How do we cope with this? Oh, this is what we're going to do. Oh, okay, let's take it the next step. Tell everybody what we've done. Share it as a story.
Yeah, and like you said, it's leverage. So it's not like I wrote that story from scratch. I had the plan already because we had to come up with it. And then I just summarized it for a media outlet and said, here's our summary. And that was it. That was all the work. It was a 15-minute job to summarize it, put it into bullet points and say, here's what we put in our plan. Go for a story. And yeah, 15-minute job, and, you know, we got a feature in a major media. So, you know, that's leverage.
Yeah, it's the ultimate leverage. And it's also being aware of opportunities and being open to the fact of, let's put it out there and see what happens.
Yeah, I'd say that the tip with all of that, people say, oh, it sounds so easy. It's not easy, but it's, you know, like when I come up with these stories that go to the media, like I said, you know, the success rate's quite high for me in terms of pitching and getting it. But it's got more to do with pitching so coming up with the right story and then fitting it perfectly to the outlet. So, I wrote a story on, a good example was, I wrote a story about how to pitch to retailers for service providers because I was sick of people pitching to me crap when they came to pitch me. And obviously I had a bit of experience with pitching with Shark Tank, so I had an opinion on it. So I wrote a piece on that. And that story just blew up. Retailers were loving it because they were sick of it as well, and it was a pain point. And service providers were loving it because I didn't realize that these things piss retailers off. And I made a few good suggestions in there, like they're such cool little nuggets. People were offering me, shouting me, let's go for an ice cream, let's go for a milkshake, let's go for orange juice. There was all sorts of fun pictures in there. It was quite fun actually. I wrote a few sequels to that actually because, and the first sequel started off the fringe benefits of writing the last article was so good I had to write another. So it's quite a funny story.
You've got a brilliant concept on leveraging because you think, well, I've said this. How can I reuse this?
Yeah, that's
okay,
right.
What else can it hook up? So, I mean, that is the ultimate reason that we look at things and how
I pitched that to the Online Retail Association, which is, and I mean, they didn't even have a media or an information or any blog or anything like that at the time.
Wow.
But the story was perfect because, their network is service providers and retailers. That's their whole network. So for them, it was like the perfect fit. So when I said to them, hey, you guys don't have content, but with this fit, they lapped it up straight away. They said, this is perfect, this is great. And as a result, it blew up on LinkedIn and just went viral. And, so it's more about picking the right outlet, to be honest, is probably the most important part. Having the story that fits the outlet and fits their readers perfectly. As long as you pitch it relatively well, you don't have to be an expert. You should get a good hit rate, So, so if I've got something to do with the party business and it's party related, I'll pitch to party outlets. If it's retail related, I'll pitch to retail outlets. If I think it's bigger and the general public would love it, I'll go to newspapers and TV. So it really, and picking a media outlet where that story fits that demographic or people that watch that relate, will find the story relevant. So really matching the story perfectly is a very key thing.
And what Dean has shared with you is around his particular business. But those points that he shared are applicable to any business because it's all about tweaking it to the audience that you're speaking to. Not having to rewrite it, just rewording it slightly that you're using the right words for that particular audience that they're going to resonate with. And you can do that with everybody's got gold nuggets. Everybody's got stories in there.
Every business does.
So it's just a matter of sitting back and thinking, okay, where are my clients? Where's my audience? Here's my story. How can I change a few words to match and let it resonate with the audience? And it's as simple as complex as that.
Yeah.
Dean, we could sit here and talk for hours. I haven't asked any of the questions I was going to. I really just love where we're going because I think it's awesome stuff for my people. It's because people don't realise that they hear about pitching, they hear about PR, they hear about branding. They think it's all very complex. But what a lot of them don't realise is they're already doing it. You just need to polish it and be more aware that you're doing it. Yeah. And what about you? One of the things I say is the best person to speak about your business, your product, your book, your message is you because you know it. Yeah. This is what Dean's been doing. He's been sharing with us exactly what he does because he loves what he does and he knows what he does and he wants to share.
It's not hard to love party though, I have to say.
Really?
Yeah, it's not hard.
Not hard. Not hard to love party? Oh, there's a bit of hard work there, I reckon.
There's plenty, yeah.
Okay. I think we might have to leave them. I'm probably going to get you to come back on again because there's a few other areas that we really didn't explore. Just before we go, I guess you've shared a lot of tips and you've shared a lot of insights. The question I want to ask you is who's the person that has most influenced you?
I mentioned a few times about some mentoring I got, and that was my uncle who is in the publishing business. And, that was that tipping point for us where we went from, you know, just, I guess we were where a lot of businesses were that are growing, which is we just wanted to kick ass and we didn't care what people think, and we just wanted to make our business the best business it could be. We didn't want to tell our story because we didn't want our competitors to know. We didn't care what people thought of us. We just wanted to do the best we could do. But that coaching I got from my uncle, where he gave me a lecture on being my personal brand and building that, and that'll be good for business, and putting ourselves out there, that PR will be great. And all that stuff really opened my eyes. And as I started doing it and getting success with it, like I said, it snowballed and started getting better at it. And, you know, that was probably a tipping point. So certainly that influenced us more than anything in terms of what we've done. And, you know, I think it's obviously very relevant for this show to be seen on TV.
Because it's exactly what happens when you do that. You get opportunities. There's a lot of people out there who felt like what you did at the beginning. I don't want to tell anybody what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Don't want to pick competition to know what I'm doing. I just want to work my business and get my clients. Well, it doesn't work like that, because you're missing a lot of people. And if you change what you did, goes based on what your uncle said to you, you've seen the outcome, and it's worth it. It's worth the
and if you don't, someone else will anyway, and they'll be screaming about it. And I hear it so often, you know, people get the shits with, oh, that person's the fate, you know, that person's popular in this industry, but he's really crap at what he does. And it's like, well,
he told people.
He's the one shouting from the top of the rooftops about what he does. You know, that's important. So
if you want to be there, you've got to let people find you. If they can't find you, they're not going to go with you. They'll go with the easiest person they see.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Where can people get in contact with you if they want to ask questions or be in touch with you?
Yeah, they can definitely hit me up on LinkedIn. That's probably the best spot. So you can just look up Dean Salakas on LinkedIn. That's probably the best spot. But yeah, certainly our website's there, thepartypeople.com.au. You can have a look at the About Us page there, and it tells a lot more about our story. But yeah, both between those two, I think you've got it all covered.
Awesome. And those links will be below here for you all to do that. Thank you, Dean. It's been
so much.
An absolute exciting journey.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
With you, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Great to chat to you, Trish.
Thank you.
See ya.
You've been watching Get Known, Be Seen Web TV, and as you can see today, Get Known, Be Seen Web TV showcases people who want to get up there, want ready to take that first step, maybe even second, third, or fourth step, and realise that the best person to speak about their business is them, and that they need to shine a light. So this is an opportunity here. I have people on like Dean who are doing two things actually. Dean is shining a light on his business by being here as a guest, but he's also come on and shared some of his expertise on how to get known, be seen. And those are the other people that I have. I interview experts who share their little tips and strategies on how to get out there and get known, be seen. I'm Trish Springsteen, your host of Get Known, Be Seen Web TV. I'm a creative business consultant. I help businesses think outside the box to be able to stand up there and repurpose and leverage. I'm Australia's leading expert in empowering introverts. I'm a multi-international award-winning mentor and an international best-selling author. But as I said, most specifically, I'm here as the host of Get Known, Be Seen Web TV. If you would like to be a guest on my show, just PM me, connect to the link. There's links below. You can connect with me. If you'd like me to be a guest on your show, or would like me to speak on your stage, an online summit, virtual or in face-to-face in person, again, there's a link below and you can contact me. Until next time, take that deep breath. Realize that the best person to speak about your business, your book, whatever it is you. And that's where you need to be. Get up there, get known, be seen. See you next time. Bye.